Okay, so now it is October 3rd of 2022. Now, I did come back in, took everything out, and then as you can see, I taped up with the gray tape. The hockey tape didn't work, and I didn't think it would. Anyway, I like this much better, and then I put everything back. So now you can see it's really nice. Now, somebody on BitChute suggested that I try a different lighting, right? Which I did order just because, right? But I don't think I'm going to take these out. I think I'm going to leave these ones here because they're already hanging, and it is what it is, right? If you notice, I got a little fan going here because tomatoes will self-pollinate, but you kind of need to move them around a little bit, right? Unless you want to come in with a toothbrush and kind of shake them up a little bit with the toothbrush and go from bud to bud to bud, which I can't even see. So I'm trying a little fan. You can see. Alright, so I'm just kind of moving this fan around. Alright. Just to give them a little bit of a shake, hoping that they'll pollinate themselves. Right? Okay. And I think these ones are called beefsteak tomatoes. That's why they end up looking like that. Anyway, not too worried about it. So I'm just moving this little fan around. Right? And I have a little grow thing that I'm going to set up. But before I do all that... Okay, hold on. Okay, so I'm back. Now, I got myself 30 pounds of raisins here from Organic Matters. So, they're organic. They don't have no preservatives in them. And I'm trying to decide how I want to store them. Now, these raisins in here have been in here for like a long time. Like a very long time, people. So raisins do you know, what you want is for them not to get a lot of moisture in them, because the moisture will breed mold. So if raisins get moldy after being in storage for a while, obviously you don't want that, right? But like these things I bought, oh, seriously, years ago through bulk section at Save On Foods. I remember them buying them, I just don't remember what year. I just know it's been a very long time. And they've been sitting in this container for basically ever. But with this new batch, I don't want to do that. I want to, you know, I do believe that our governments are lying to us in regards to, you know how they say, what's coming, right? In terms of, I guess you could say, hard times. Now, as I eat these raisins that have been in this plastic container for God knows, I don't know how many years, I can kind of tell that they've been in a plastic container. That's why I go out of my way for those. Now, in the good old days, when you used to go shopping and you could buy a jar of pickles like this, the glass was much thicker So that's an old one. Compared to what you get today. You can hear the difference. But they suffice as long as you don't bang them around. I pack them up and then I put them in the box that they came in. I'm going to put the box away. This one is from back in the day, much thicker. But lucky me, I don't have a lid for this one. But this lid that came from these jars fits. So, because I've been like scrounging around for jars, I took one of my oatmeal jars because I had quick oats, well, regular oats. It wasn't quick, but you know, regular, no, yeah, one jar is like regular oats, which aren't so chopped up, right? And then the other jar, I guess you could say, is quick oats. So I like to have two types of oats available. And organic oats, oh my god, so good. So I needed that lid for that jar. So one jar, anyway, doesn't have a lid now until I buy maybe another set. And I'll probably use this because I have a few tomato plants. Well, more than a few, but they're not going to survive. You know, kind of like little seedlings of tomato plants in the greenhouse. They probably need water. So I'm setting up a little cracky system, hopefully throughout the day, right? I have to go look for a soldering iron or maybe a glue gun because it gets hot, right? And then melt the plastic so the roots can go through. And this will be with the grow solution. Okay? So I'm kind of working on that too, right? And then you cover up the jar with some paper so light doesn't get in there. And you just monitor the water, right? Yeah, I guess you have to feed them every 2 weeks or something. I mean, technically you'd want it in a 5-gallon bucket. But I'm not putting 5 gallons of water or even 2 gallons of, well, you know, like in terms of that. I'm just going to try it like that. We'll probably have to give it a fair amount of water. So it'll be a little bit of a science experiment because I seen somebody grow small tomatoes in mason jars. And she said it was a real hassle having to always put water in. Plus, you don't know necessarily when to give them food, right? With your hydroponic stuff. But I bought this. To start with. Can you see? Because I seen another video where a guy grew, I guess it was tomato plants. I think it was tomato plants. Or maybe it was lettuce. Either or. Maybe it was both. I don't know. All I know is he just used this. I think it was 5 cc's, which is about a teaspoon, to a gallon. And then he used 5-gallon buckets, 20 cc's. And he tried one with irrigation, which is like a little pump with a stone that puts air into the water. And he did without, right? And the one without actually, I think, in the end, did better. It was tomato plants, because I remember him picking them, right? Anyway, and separating them once he got them started. It was some kind of plant. I don't know. I watched a lot of those kind of videos. So I'm going to try this first before I muck with because this is the easiest. It's 5 cc to 1 gallon. And that's going to be about 1 gallon of water there. And then I'll do one of these jars just for fun, right? Just to see what we get. And then I'm going to set up, some little lettuce plants somehow, some way, with something else that I got to get me going on it, right? So in the meantime, I mean, it would be great if I could actually get the microgreens growing, the microgreens growing, you know, like, I think this is broccoli seeds or something, I don't know. It would be great if I could, you know, you can sprout the mung beans, right? And cook those into your meals and those kind of things. You can sprout wheat, right? And which, you know, at some point, right? If you're not grinding it, you can sprout it and cook it into meals. And grow tomatoes, right? You could throw a cucumber plant in there if you wanted to, right? You know, you can do lettuce, you can do bok choy, those kind of things, right? So that's kind of like, I'm slowly but surely, but you know, I have to, I don't know, I have to find another corner somewhere. I'm kind of eyeballing the bathroom, but anyway. Okay, so back to the raisins. Now, a couple of years ago, I don't know, 3 or 4, maybe 5, I don't know. It was so much grapes. I ended up dehydrating a lot of them that I didn't, you know, for the ones that I didn't can and whatnot. And, you know, if the thing is, for something like this, because these ones here, the ones that I just bought, I'll show you, because I'm just topping off, right? These wheats, one is red hard wheat, and the other one is soft white wheat. I've got just 2 3-pound buckets coming, and I'm just putting them into buckets, and I'm leaving the buckets up here, right? And then that will be the motivation to use it regularly to start grinding, because you want to grind as you go, right? You don't want to grind and put it in a container. You just want to grind the wheat for what you're going to basically use for the day, kind of thing. Or at least within the next couple of days, right? So, right? You can make bread today and cake tomorrow. Okay, so at the same time, I did say I wanted to get raisins, so I obviously got raisins, you can see. Now these raisins are fresh and they're organic. So they're moist. Now I could just take them and throw them in the jar, put them away, and hope for the best that they won't start molding. Right? These ones are similar, only they're older, but they're just a little more crunchier. They're not as gooey as these ones, because these ones are fresh. Right? But I don't want them to mold on me. So what I'm going to do, you can see my dehydrating trays. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking them out. And I don't think I really have to break them up very much. They recommend that you break them up, just pierce the skin a little bit. So put them on a plate or something, or on a cutting board. And then take the bottom of a jar, this is what I read, right? And just push on them a little bit to break, so that you can pierce the skin, so that the moisture can evaporate as it's in the dehydrator. I'm going to try and dehydrate them until pretty much crispy. Because when I do blueberries, I find that if I dehydrate blueberries until they're crispy. Oh boy, those things will last forever. Honest to God, they really, really do. So it's the same principle because both are high in sugar, right? And when I had my grapes growing, I know when I dried those ones, the ones without seeds, I dried them until they were crispy. And they were good. And I still should have a couple of jars kicking around. Right? Because I don't remember what I paid for these things. But you don't want to waste 30 pounds worth of raisins, right? And I figure once I get into, when I get into the grinding of the wheat, start working with that cornmeal. I haven't done it yet. It's too busy, people. You know, having my son do what my son did kind of like put me back, right? Because some shit came upstairs and now I'm bringing in plants yet to boot, which I'm moving stuff and I'm like, where am I going to put shit now? Like I basically shut off War Room 1 just for tomato plants and lettuce. But I'm really happy with what I'm doing in there. It's kind of cool. And that room basically sits and does nothing. I haven't worked in it in a long time for the most part. So, it's okay. So that's what I'm going to do now. I do think that, I don't know, like I'm really suspicious about the Canadian, I guess you could say, economy. Because, everybody running around acting like everything's fine. And it's deceiving because you go out to the stores and that kind of thing. And they look fairly well stocked for the most part. Especially the bigger ones anyway. But then I don't get out all the time, so it's hard to say. Honestly, outside of what I see. And, but when you check around the globe, right, I don't know, I think it's going to sneak up on Canadians. I think our government is just being silent in regards to what's coming. Because back in the day, when I started doing grains and beans and those kind of things in bulk, which started in what, 2019? So 19, 20, 21, part of 22. There's not even half available of what there was 3-4 years ago. So that says something, right? Like you can't find whole corn dry. Nope, that's why I bought the cornmeal, because it's just you can't find it. You can find popcorn, right, through Organic Matters, and probably from nut.com in the United States, but you can't find actual corn, right? Unless you want to dehydrate it yourself, because you bought it in a bag, frozen, or you went off and, you know, blanched your corn and husked it, which I've already done, right? But to be able to buy it, you can't find it. I haven't seen it now for well over 2 years, right? A lot of the beans aren't as available as they used to be. Same thing with grain, right? So I really just kind of can't stress it enough. You gotta just keep doing this stuff. Because there just might come a day when, I don't know. So yeah, you definitely want to, if you're going to store these for any length of time, because I want to use them with cornbread. I want to make a sweet cornbread with raisins in it. Obviously, I want to make homemade bread, raisin bread, right? Pudding, rice pudding with raisins, right? Definitely, these are way too gooey. Way too gooey. Okay, because I just took a big chunk out. And don't be too quick just to throw them in a jar and put them away for long-term storage. Okay? That is like really gooey. They're fresh though, right? So, you know, that's to be expected. And so this is why I'm showing you this way. If you want to save raisins long term, this is the way I'm going to do it. So that I know that the food doesn't spoil with mold or develop botulism. You're not supposed to take raisins and put them in a jar and with an oxygen absorber, because you can get botulism from that. Apparently you can put raisins like this in a jar and then put them away in a sealed jar like I just showed you, right? They said double sealed, whatever that means. I guess that's like a mason jar with a, you know, a ring and then a lid, the lid with the screw-on band, right? Because nothing can escape and nothing can get in. So apparently you can do raisins like that and then vacuum seal the jar through a vacuum sealer without an oxygen absorber, and it should be good for a couple of 2-3 years, but it recommended that you check it every now and then for that mold. Well, as if I'm going to remember to go check raisins. So my best bet is to do what I'm doing, break them up. I know, you just created yourself a whole bunch of work, but long term it will be worth it, because once you get them nice and crispy, and then they'll last a long time for sure, no problem. So now I got a little mason jar. They say just go like this just to break up the skin a bit, right? So that when it dehydrates actually inside the actual raisin itself, which is a grape. And if you were dealing with a blueberry, I don't bust up the blueberries, but once they start, blueberries will take a long time to dehydrate to get into that crispy state, 2-3 days. And then once they start getting crispy, that's when I move around and break them, and you can, you know, because they swell up and you can pop them, and so it kind of, you know, goes like that, right? But in this situation, you can see we're not going for aesthetics here. We're going for nutrients and longevity. So now that that's kind of done, you just take them and start spreading them out on your dehydrator. I've been so wanting to put this dehydrator away, but I haven't yet, and now I'm glad I didn't. See, the thing about raisins too, now I've got raisins, like sun-ripe raisins, that I bought years ago in the original package that is in a different food storage area, which now I'm interested in go finding. And then when I find them, they're either going to be compost, or I might just do this. Being that, one, they're old and they've been sitting in a container in their original package for quite a few years, really. So it should be interesting to see. Now you can freeze raisins indefinitely, apparently. Obviously lay them out, unless you want one big glob. But you see, this is why you kind of want, you see, because the mold could start growing in there if something is, you know, been sitting for a long, long time. So this is why I'm doing it this way. I don't know what I paid for this. I can't remember. I think it was close to $100. Something like that. So it's not anything I just want to have go to waste, right? So just break them up with your fingers. Come in with your jar. Squish them around a bit. Spread them out onto your tray. Just dehydrate them. Try and get them as crispy as you can. And then after, jar them up. Vacuum seal them. And put them away in a cool, dark place. Have it as backup. A lot of crop failures, right? People stealing shit these days. My landlady was so disappointed. She came by to get the grapes, and she knew they were there because I seen them too. And we decided to leave them just for another week or less, right? And when she came back, they were all gone, people. So whoever's stealing potatoes is stealing other things too. Seriously. Like, I've been in this house 12 years. I've never had that problem. Ever. Nope. Never. But next year I've decided I'm probably going to go to the farms. Yeah. I'll have my landlady take me. Oh yes, speaking of my landlady, well, my landlord made that eye medication, and my landlady was telling me that her grandmother and great-grandmother used the same eye medication, because that's all they had in those days, that I'm now using, right? And so I said, well, how do you use it? Anyway, she gave, they gave me like a little container with this little glass thing that you dip the glass thing into the liquid, and then you take it and you kind of put it between your eyelids, and you, right? So she did it for me, and she was surprised that I didn't react to the sting. And I said, well, that's because I have a high tolerance of pain. That's the first thing, right? And so anyway, I've done it a couple times already myself. My left, and guess what I did yesterday? I was out in the yard yesterday, my poor left eye, it's just getting beat up real bad. Right? It's been like bothering me so much, right? Anyway, with, going to the hospital, and they're putting freezing agents on it, and they're, what do you call it? Putting the pressure eye thing on there, and testing my pressure, and, and then, anyway, I use this eye stuff, which has honey from India. What is it?
like the pollen, the little beads, right? Which is the actual pollen, the honeycomb type, right? Anyway, the honey is from India. I said, oh, so now I know why you go to India. Because they always say they're going to get honey. Now I know why they went and got honey. Anyway, I've used it like, oh, I don't know, I've done it like 3 times already to myself. In both eyes. She recommended 3 times a day. I'm at 2 right now. I should be actually doing it again. And oh yeah, it does sting. It really does. But what I did yesterday, I was working in the yard and I was cutting down some plants that had died off and were stalky. Right? And I'm like, cut. Well, I wasn't even cutting. I was just kind of like pulling or something. I don't know. And one of the stalks with dried bud on it, because they're flowers, right? It went right into my eye. It hit my eyeball straight on. Because I don't see things coming, right? I'm always poking my left eye. If I'm not poking it like directly in the eyeball, I'm poking it right along the side of the, you know, the bone that encompasses the eyeball. Anyway, I whacked myself really, really good. And my eye just started to throb, and it felt like something was inside of it. And I'm like, holy shit. That's all I need. So I go across the street to my neighbors, the nice Punjabis. And there was a fella out there, and I asked him if he could look in my eye for me and let me know if there was anything in it, because it sure felt like something was in it in terms of, you know, dried up plant, a dried up flower, or whatever. He said he didn't see anything, but I got my eyeball good. Like, it literally hit my freaking eyeball. And so needless to say, between the hospital, then going to the eye clinic, and them poking around with their little pressure thing and freezing my eye, and right, and just my eye in general, and then I turned around and whacked it really good. It is really kind of bugging me, but I am using that stuff, right? And it does sting. She's supposed to come by, for something in the next couple of days or so. I'm giving her a walnut tree. Her husband wants one. She's got one she got from me a long time ago. But he asked for another one. Just an English walnut one of some sort. So I gotta get that ready. And then I'll just ask her, like, how much am I supposed to be dipping into this little thing that you gave me? Because it's liquid. It's not like, it's, you know, you just dip that little glass thing in and it's on the, you know, it doesn't take much, that's for sure. And my eyes really water. But I'm going to give it my best shot. Right. I don't know if it's my imagination or not, but after using it a few times already, I went outside yesterday. Like, I went back outside after I was outside. Right. I don't know if I can see better or not, but maybe I can. Maybe it's just in my head. I don't know. She said, if you're going to notice anything, it will be within a month or 2. Right? So we'll see. We will see. So once you break it up a little bit like that, just spread it out on your tray as best as you can. You definitely want to dehydrate these if you're going to put them away for any length of time. I can tell you that right now. These are really, really gooey. So I'm glad I'm doing this. So if you decide to get some raisins, I have to wash my hands. I'm not going to get these all dehydrated in one setting. I can tell you that right now. Maybe I might get lucky and get, oh God, I don't know, maybe a half a box? Maybe? Maybe. I didn't make much of a dent in there. Right? And then as it's dehydrating, just break them up. You'll thank yourself. Okay? And once you get them into a nice crispy state, they should last forever in a proper container. Okay? Now, because there's a lot of sugar, it will crystallize a little bit in there. Probably. But yeah, those are gooey. You definitely want to do this if you're going to be storing them for any length of time. Okay, so moving along here, this is organic corn flour. Okay, for whatever reason, I don't know, the label came off. I'm going to jar them up. That's what I'm going to do. And then this one is chickpea, right? Garbanzo, right? Oh boy, hold on. So yeah, I think it's the 5th, October 5th of 2022. It's like almost 8:30 in the morning. I'm getting ready to go outside at some point. I was supposed to go outside yesterday, but instead what I did is I cut up, let me talk while I do this. Instead what I did is, well, you know my son's been cleaning house, right? Anyway, he chucked out Indian carpet, you know, floor rug, big one, that's been downstairs for a long time. Well, I had two choices, well, three. I could have either let it just go to the dump, well, I could have had four. I could have let it go to the dump, or I could have put it out on the road and maybe somebody would have took it, which they probably would have, because it's not in, you know, I mean, it's been downstairs forever, but I think I found it myself, or I bought it, or whether I bought it or whether I found it at Delta Spring Cleanup like freaking years and years and years and years and years and years ago, and I brought it home with Betsy or whatever, anyway, or I could wash it and then try and incorporate it upstairs. That was another choice, right? Or I could have used it as an underlay in the yard and it would have just deteriorated over time. Anyway, I decided to wash it, and then I just let it sit out in the sun for a week and a half or whatever it was, almost 2 weeks, not quite 2 weeks, right? Just to, you know, let the sun do its magic, right? And then I cut it, and you know, it's not in its optimum shape, but it's doable. So I brought it inside with Andre, and I pieced it into the living room, a part of it, most of it. And then the other little bit, I'm going to just make floor mats with them, right? And because they're washable in terms of, you can just dip them in the bathtub, up and down with a bit of soapy water, and then just hang dry them. So, you know, I'll get a year out of them anyway, for what it's worth.
right? Just trying to be frugal. So I doubled up on the carpet, which will help with helping to keep the house warmer. Because the house gets cold in the wintertime, right? So doubling up on the carpet, you know, in the living room is not so bad. So I did that, and then I pulled out, for whatever reason, electric guitars to see if they worked and set them up for Andre. So we can learn, right? Because, you know, he's showing more of an interest in music. I just, right, I have to get more organized so I can spend more time with him. So anyway, I brought out the electric guitars and was mucking with that. You know, going through the amps that I have and mucking with that and trying to determine if anything works, and discovered that the small amp works with the mic, but there's a loose connection in there. My amp that I can take out into public and it can run on a battery, obviously the battery was completely dead. So I don't know, I've got it charging right now. Hopefully it will charge, because if it doesn't charge, you know, I never used it that much, and it's not like it's barely been used, but it's been sitting for years and years and years. So, you know, I plugged it in, and I thought if I plugged it in, it would just start playing because it was directly connected to the electricity, but I guess it needs to recharge at least for 24 hours if the battery is completely dead. But, you know, we'll see. So I gotta wait till this afternoon to see if that works. And if not, I'll take it back to Long and McQuaid and they can figure it out and tell me what's wrong with it. And hopefully they'll be able to fix it. Otherwise, I'll have to buy another one. Maybe I just let it sit too long. Who knows? Right? But I have my electric drum amp, which I changed the cord that wasn't working with the guitars to a different cord, and then I plugged it into my electric drum amp, and both of them work, people. Like, yes, because now I couldn't get nothing to work, right? So I'm online Googling at Long and McQuaid electric guitars, right? Well, there was only one there that was $250. Everything else basically was, you know, $500 all the way up to $300 just for one electric guitar. And I'm like, holy crumb, I didn't realize electric guitars are so expensive. Right? Now, what kind I have, I don't know. I just know I've had them for, oh God, I can't even remember when I got them, okay? I've had them forever. Like, literally. So I got them now in the living room with the new carpet. And because it's an Indian carpet, and it's like with the dark blues and blacks and that kind of thing, you know, with their design, right? Oh, I can't see nothing on the floor. Even Andre noticed it. Because we're down on the ground, you know, mucking with this, mucking with that. And then I have a tuner that I don't know how to use for a guitar, right? So, you know, we put the tuner down on the carpet, and then we can't see the tuner because it's, you know, black on black, right? So I don't know if I'm going to keep that carpet in there. I like it. I like the feel under my feet. I like the idea that it's, you know, going to help keep the house a little warmer. At least that area, you know, it's like layering clothing. Andre asked me, why did you do that, Nana? I said, well, what happens if you go outside with just a t-shirt on and it's cold? He says, well, I get cold. I said, exactly. But what happens if you put on a t-shirt and then a shirt and then a jacket, right? Oh, I get, you know, I get hot. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. You know, he said toasty. I said, well, yeah, you know, you're warmer, right? You know, sometimes you have to add on another sweater. So you're layered 4 layers of fabric just to be able to, you know, manage the weather outside, right? And depending on the fabric, you know, some does better than others. Like, for example, for those that live in regions, what are those raisins that I'm dehydrating? I gave Amari a bath yesterday. I turned off the dehydrator so he wouldn't get disturbed with the sound. I got distracted and forgot to turn it back on. I got up this morning and I'm like, oh my god. So I wasted a whole bunch of hours, but that's okay. I'm just dehydrating. Oh, they're so good. What was I saying? Oh yeah. These raisins are so good. For those that are coming into an energy crisis where the cost of energy is extremely high, and they're faced with like intermittent blackouts, especially in pockets of the United States of America and places like that, Europe or wherever, right? It's going to start in Europe, and then, you know, it will happen in the States. I don't think it will be like a big sweep right across the country, but I do believe that they're going to have pockets of inconvenience for large populations where, you know, they're going to be lacking on heat, people, to some degree, in terms of, like, you know, staying warm. So I don't know what your financial situation is or anything like that in terms of as to who watched my videos. But if you've got some old fur jackets around and you know they're kicking around somewhere in the house, or you know you have them but you're not sure where they are, I highly recommend that you go look for them and keep them handy. Because ultimately, I would think at the end of the day, when it comes to keeping and retaining in body heat, fur, natural fur, is the best. Especially if it's going into an emergency. Because you can make things to keep yourself warm if you didn't have them. In terms of like a good set of, what are they called, mucklucks? Like the kind of moccasin that you go outside in and you can trample around with and your feet will stay warm because of the fur. Whether they're, you know, insulated preferably on the inside and outside. Yeah. Or, you know, if an emergency happens and you have to bring everybody into one location just to keep them warm and sheltered away from the other elements, as if the hydro went out and, you know, you had to sustain yourselves in your house for any length of time in freezing weather, you would definitely want some fur around. Okay? So if you have it, put it in the back of your mind where it is. And if you need it, then you use it. I have fur jackets from back in the day when I was, you know, a costume maker and making little outfits and shit like that. I wanted to do a whole fur line series. So I'd pick up fur jackets here and there, and you know, some of them are no good for other than making something else with them, where other ones are actually my fur jackets. There's not that many. There's a few that I can wear and I used to wear. Just think about stuff like that, because I don't know. So anyway, this stuff here, I have this press machine. It's cast iron. It's really heavy duty. I bought it last year so that, you know, you can press this kind of flour dough type into those flat things that you can flip and fry fast and roll up food and eat, right? Now, I know I have some old corn flour around the house, and I probably even have chickpea flour kicking around. I think they're over there, but they're old. So I went off and I bought 2 new bags of this stuff. So that once I get organized in here and get more into a routine of making our own breads, whether it's flat breads, buns, oh, donuts would be so nice. Try some bagels. Right now I'm craving, I'm actually craving it. Just popped out of nowhere in my head. Well, not that it popped out of nowhere, because I started to think about this, and I'm like, well, what can I do, you know, to make something easy that's nutritional? Now this is, and I'm thinking to actually try this today. Like, it wouldn't hurt, okay? This is, here, I'm not going to get all this in this jar. So I'll leave myself a little bit of this chickpea flour, right? And you know how you make egg noodle? You can either just do it the long way and roll it out, make that homemade macaroni, or you can just take some flour in a bowl, a little sprinkle of salt, and throw in some egg and mix it up and scoop it up and boil it in a soup or a pot or whatever. And then depending on where you have it, if it's a soup, it would stay in the soup. But if you just boil it, take it out, and then want to mix in a curry sauce with it, which is so good, and that's what I'm thinking. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't got time to cook. You have to go outside. Right? You gotta go outside. You gotta go get the skill saw and cut some wood and measure and run around and, you know, garbage day to, you know, get the garbage out, because I'm doing it in increments, right? You know, just whatever, right? Make a pass so that your son can do this and your son can do that, because he does like the heavy stuff with the plywood and whatever, right? We'll change the rabbit hutch roof. And I don't got time to fucking cook, people. I just don't know right now. But this is simple, so I'm thinking, just try it. Before you go out, make a little batch, right? Make a curry sauce with it. And see, first of all, if you can even use this with just egg. I don't know what. I don't know. I don't know the result of what I'm going to get with this. Okay, so we say 2 eggs. We'll just say 2 eggs, right? Maybe I'll try it. 2 eggs with, well, I don't know. I don't know what the ratio is in terms of mixing it up. We'll just say 1 cup. I'm thinking 2/3 this and 1/3 cup white flour. That's what I'm thinking. That's what comes to my head. But where it comes from, I don't know, because it's not like I've done it before. So I'm just assuming that 2/3 of this with 1/3 of 1/3 of flour, whatever that flour is, but in this case probably just plain old white flour, right? A little bit of salt, and then how many eggs it takes to make that where you can scoop it up and boil it. Okay? So that's 1 to 2 eggs, I would think. Right? More than 1 egg. Maybe even 3, it's hard to say. It depends how this absorbs the egg. Right? I would think this is more nutritional than the white flour. Right? But we're just using the white flour because it's just, you know, it doesn't have a lot of taste, because I'm interested in knowing what the taste might be like. Right? Okay. Now I'm looking for a minute. So, alright. Then I'd boil it. You could do one of 2 things. Make your sauce. In this case, it would be curry sauce with some onions, a little bit of garlic, maybe some celery chopped up, you know, sauteed, with some butter. Make it rich, right? And then add in your curry, right? And then mix it in plain as is with whatever it was that you cooked, and it's now ready to be incorporated into the sauce. Or just to add those extra calories, Because for whatever reason, I'm always living in a, well, I'm not always living in it, but when I do stuff like this, you know, this is where, like, this is where I'm lacking in terms of I don't have the family to help cook it. I just have the energy, mainly, to prepare it and get it prepped and get it ready to go so that the family can come and make the flatbreads and or what I'm talking about and then feed me the plate. That's been taken away from me because I've lost 2 daughters. Okay. But other than that, my intentions are still good, and I'm still thinking as if, well, what if? What if you had no choice? And there's going to come a day when you're going to be thankful that you did this, because you will have the time to use it. And when you use it, boy oh boy, you're going to be greasing good and having a good time while you do it, for the most part, right? Because, you know, it's quality food, right? And because it's being preserved in a jar, you're not going to get that leaching of the plastic, which will preserve the food better. And if you, depending on, like this, I plan on using regularly, right? I just needed the right size container. So anyway, we got this much left. Okay, so then what happens after that? I'm thinking to do this just for the sake of it, because, you know, in time of depression or recession or whatever, right, and you're trying to feed your family a nutritional meal with limited access to food where you have to space it out, in a situation like that, just to add the extra calories, if you had the tallow, the beef lard, or even the pork lard, for that matter, because you took the time to render it yourself and you have a little extra to spare, and you can incorporate it into your meals just to add in a few extra calories in light of maybe what's going on in the economy. I'd like to take some of those noodles that were made from the chickpeas, basically, and I'd crisp them up in either the beef fat, the tallow, right? Or with the pork fat, whichever, or, doesn't matter. Or you could even do chicken fat if you wanted to after it's been rendered, right? And then pour in your sauce. Oh, man. I'm like, oh, yeah, but Judy, that's going to take you like 4 hours to do. By the time you're done doing everything else, if you just, and I'm like, oh, but it'd be so good. But I have to use the skill saw today. So maybe what I can do is I can just get everything prepped and get it ready for tomorrow, because tomorrow I probably won't want to go outside if I'm successful at going outside today. Right now I'm just kind of stalling for time, just playing a little bit of catch up on shit here. I'm just going to finish off this video. Right? My computers need, their hard drives need to be emptied out, and I don't have time to sit there and transfer files onto the external hard drive, and so it's like whatever. Okay, now this I know is corn flour. It doesn't have a label on it, but it's organic as well. And I know I have some over there that's old, right? So I thought I'd make, you know, when the time comes, right? Use fresh, make a batch. Use the old, make a batch. Taste, see if you can tell the difference. And if worst case scenario, you can go half on each batch, and you're not wasting anything, because as long as there's no mold, it won't matter. Okay, it's the mold that is the problem. And I'd like to talk about these raisins, for example. Okay? Now, they're in the dehydrator. Of course, I'm kind of like behind on it because I gave Amari a bath yesterday and I turned it off. So, but that's okay. I got almost a half a box on the trays. And if I would have stored them in these jars as is, I don't know, people. Personally, if I just would have put them in the jar, because you can do that, and then seal just close it, right? If you can do them in a jar like this and vacuum seal them, but don't put an oxygen absorber in them, because for whatever reason, if you do it that way and the raisins are moist, you're allowing the potential happening of botulism to start growing in your jar due to the lack of oxygen in it or something like that. Whereas if you put them in a jar like this, right, where you vacuum seal it with a vacuum sealer without an oxygen absorber, then your raisins more than likely will be fine. They'll just compact over time, and they'll dry on the outside wherever it can with whatever little air is in the jar itself, and there won't necessarily be any mold. However, after 2 or 3 years of sitting like that undisturbed, unopened, you know, I read that you still should be paying attention, because there is the potential for mold. Not to mention of botulism, but of mold, which are completely two different things here, people, okay? Mold doesn't necessarily grow in a jar like this, okay? Right? Unless, of course, the lid is really compromised and it's getting air all the time, because that's what mold likes, right? Whereas botulism lives in the liquid, and you know what I'm saying? It's different than mold, right? It lives in the moisture of the product. So if you're gonna store raisins long term for any length of time, it's best to dehydrate them and make them crispy. and this way you cut back on botulism growing. If you seal them up in a jar with oxygen absorbers, which you don't want to do, because it just traps that moisture to where the botulism can grow. Or, you know, for whatever reason, you get a growth of mold, which could be in a pocket in the middle of the jar because it's so moist. But it's different than botulism. Okay, just keep that in mind. I'm going in circles with this because I'm trying to understand myself, right? And so, you know, I've got raisins in a bucket over there in the original, like, sun-ripe raisins in their original plastic bags. And just because of them being in a bucket in a pantry, you know, undisturbed, there's a 99% chance that they'll be fine. I'm going to try and find them over the next several months, and we'll talk about it when I do. But if you're getting a new box or new bags of raisins or whatever, and, you know, you're wanting to, you know, have a little backup there for food security in your house, then you're going to have to think ahead how you're going to preserve them so that you can use them and get your money's worth for what you paid for them, to which they're getting really expensive now in the grocery stores. Seriously. Just do it that way. Dehydrate them or freeze them if you want. I mean, you can. I'll probably do 1 jar of fresh raisins. Like I have a jar here. I'll probably fill that up with raisins and just leave that for upstairs, right? And I do plan on doing it again after in a new year, like getting another 30 pound of raisins, right? Assuming that they even have them. Because, you know, things are getting harder and harder to find. I'm on hold for a special kind of raisin. They'll let me know if they get it. Right. I want some saltine raisins, 30 pounds, but I can't get them right now, right? Unless, of course, you go to the grocery store and pay 80 bucks for it. Well, more than 80. What am I talking about? $200 for it. 30 pounds of raisins, which were the cheaper grade of raisins. I paid like $105. That's what it was. For 30 pounds of raisins. Organic raisins. With no oil. I chose the one with no oils. Because I knew I was going to dehydrate them. For the most part. And then I got some organic coconut milk, 4 cases, because I said I was going to do that. The cases were on sale because the cans are either at their expiry date or coming up to it, one or the other. But they're BPA free with organic coconut milk, which, you know, it's a good backup, right? In terms of making puddings and that kind of stuff, which I plan on doing. Alright. Rice pudding with raisins with coconut milk. And Gabarzo macaroni with fried onions, a little bit of garlic, some celery chunks, a few slices of carrots, and then having the Gabarzo macaroni crisped up in some beef tallow. Oh my God. And then just mixed in with a mild curry sauce. Oh my Lord. That's what I want today. I'm so serious. But I can't. I have to make it maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow that will be a video. Because that'd be so good. Yeah, that'd be so good. So that's all I've been doing, just running around doing shit. Pampering my babies. I rescued another one. I snuck it in. And then I got to get these other ones going in these little glass containers here. All right. Okay, so, see?